Today, you'll learn English with the news. We'll read a news article together about negotiating a job offer. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started.
First, I'll read the headline. Got a job offer? Now it's time to negotiate. We're talking about negotiating, a very important skill, especially when it comes to a job offer. So first, let's take a look at this question. Got a job offer? Got a job offer? This is very natural. This is something a native speaker would say. However, it's a short form. The full sentence would be, do you have a job offer? Do you have a job offer? Native speakers will often replace have with got. So what we're doing is you're just deleting the auxiliary verb and the subject because it's not necessary to understand. And then you're changing have to got a job offer. Now, you could also use got as the verb and then use the auxiliary verb have. Have you got a job offer? But in American English, this is more common. Do you have a job offer? And then this is extremely common for a native speaker. Here's something that native speakers commonly say every single day. Got a sec? Got a sec? Do you know what this means? It means, do you have a second? A second meaning a period of time. So it's just a casual way of saying, do you have some time? So if I need assistance, I can say, got a sec? Can you help me complete the report? So got a job offer? Do you have a job offer? Now it's time to negotiate. So let's start the article. Millions of people are quitting their jobs and finding new ones in what has been dubbed the Great Resignation. So here, to quit, just to make sure you know, this is when you permanently leave your position and it's your choice to do so. I quit. I'm permanently leaving this job because I don't like it and I want to find a different one. Here the expression is to be dubbed, and this is when someone or something is formally or officially called something. So for example, I saw earlier this week that Taylor Swift has been dubbed Person of the Year by Time magazine. So Taylor Swift has officially been called Person of the Year. She has received this title, but she's received it from someone specific, Time magazine. So this is the context in which you would use dub as a replacement for call. We certainly don't use it to introduce ourselves with our name. Perhaps Taylor Swift could introduce herself as, hi, I'm Taylor Swift. I've been dubbed Person of the Year by Time. She could do that to talk about her official title, but she wouldn't do that to introduce her name. Let's continue. If you're looking for a job, you've got the advantage. So here, this is another replacement. You have the advantage. So you could use either one, have got, or simply you have the advantage. The advantage means the best conditions for success. This is commonly used in sports, but it can be used in other contexts as well. And there's an expression that we say the upper hand. So the advantage can also be called the upper hand. You have the upper hand. So let's say there are two sports teams and one team is playing in their home city. That team has the advantage. That team has the upper hand because all the fans will be cheering for them and supporting them, and they've practiced on that exact field. So they have the upper hand, they have the advantage. And if you've received a job offer, it's now time to negotiate. Now, of course, negotiating is very culturally specific. In North America, it's expected that you would negotiate a salary position. So a salary meaning you get a set amount per year, $80,000 per year. But for hourly positions, you can negotiate them, but it's not as expected as a salary position. It would be very common for someone to say, no, the hourly rate isn't negotiable, but that salary position is almost always negotiable. What about in your country? Share in the comments if it is common or expected to negotiate your job offer, the salary in your job offer. Share that in the comments.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson.
While salary tends to be the major negotiation point, so that's what I just talked about, salary, that's how much you make per year, it's not the end of the conversation. So by saying it's not the end of the conversation, it means that there are other opportunities to negotiate beyond the salary, So that means more than the salary. There are other benefits and perks that can be flexible as well. So a benefit could be sick time, vacation time, or a bonus. And then a perk is something additional you receive that is more unofficial. So maybe you get a free lunch every single day. That could be a perk. So you don't have to make your lunch and you don't have to pay for lunch. Or you get a free Metro Pass or a free parking spot. That could be a perk. So there are more unofficial things, but those are flexible, which means you can negotiate them. So I wrote those examples of benefits and perks for you. Now I wrote flexible. Another way is negotiable. So to negotiate, negotiable. Now you could also say non-negotiable, which means it cannot be negotiated. It isn't flexible. So the employer might say the hourly rate is non-negotiable, which means you will not receive any higher than advertised. The hourly rate is non-negotiable. But then you might say, how about the benefits? How about the perks? Because remember, there are other things to negotiate, at least in North America. Again, please share how negotiation works in your culture in the comments. I think it would be really interesting to know. First, stay mum on pay. You might be wondering about this. Mum, what does this mean? In this context, to stay mum means to stay silent. So don't talk about pay. Be silent, stay mum. Now we have an expression where we use this more commonly, mum's the word. So here's the context. Let's say you're planning a surprise party for your mom, and you might tell your mom's best friend or coworker, remember, the party for my mom is a surprise. So you're reminding that person not to say anything. And then the person can reply back and say, don't worry, mum's the word, which means don't worry, I won't say anything about the surprise. I'll be silent. I'll be quiet. Now, I used mom specifically because mom in North America is, of course, short for mother, but I want you to notice that the pronunciation is slightly different here. Notice my mouth. Mom. But here, mum, It's more of an unstressed mum. Mum's the word. So don't say mom's the word. It's not mom, mother. It's mum. Mum's the word. So if someone shares a secret with you and they say, please don't tell anyone, you can say, mum's the word, to reassure them that you won't say anything. So first, stay mum on pay until the time is right. Recruiters often ask for a salary figure. If a recruiter, of course, is a person who finds employees for a company. So companies hire recruiters to find workers for specific job openings. Recruiters often ask for a salary figure early in the hiring process. So perhaps you submit your application and before they schedule an interview, they might reply to your application and say, oh, what are your salary expectations? What are your salary expectations? But this advice is to stay mum, so not provide that. And a salary figure, a figure is when you give a range. So a low point and a high point. So you might say, between 50 to 60. 50,000 to 60,000. Of course, that's salary annual. Between 50 to 60 a year. So I wrote that here, and notice that you can summarize 1,000 with the letter K. So 60K is 60,000. But try to avoid giving a number. So remember, stay mum on pay. Now, avoid is a gerund verb, which is why you have giving in ing. So I see a lot of mistakes with this. Remember, avoid plus gerund. But try to avoid giving a number. So that's why mum's the word. The right time to bring pay up, so to bring something up is when you talk about it. So the right time to talk about pay is at the end of the process being the hiring process, after you've received an offer. Let's continue. You never start to negotiate in the midst of an interview. So in the midst of something means in the middle of, a very common way. Notice the pronunciation, midst of, in the midst of. You never start to negotiate in the midst of an interview, said Victoria Medvec, author of Negotiate Without Fear. You're not negotiating before they've said, we want to hire you. So that makes sense. You wait for them to offer you the job before you negotiate. That makes perfect sense. The key is having a well-researched salary number. So here, the key to success, the key to negotiating properly, successfully. And you don't need to include that information because it's implied. So you could just say the key is, but it's short for the key to success. So if we were having a conversation about the best way to become fluent and the context is established, I could simply say the key is having a great teacher, because you already know that the context is the key to success, the key to successfully learning English is having a great teacher. And hopefully I'm that teacher for you. Now, if you agree with that the key to success is having a great teacher, put that's the key, put it in the comments. That's the key. The key is having a well-researched salary number. Websites like Glassdoor, PayScale, and LinkedIn can help provide a sense of what people in similar roles, experience levels, and markets are making. Once you have a consensus of what is a reasonable amount. Okay, a consensus. This is a general agreement. So if you look on these different websites, these 3 websites, and 80% of people say that a marketing director should make $100,000 per year, well, then that's a consensus. You don't need 100% of people to agree for a consensus, is just the majority, the general majority. So 80%, in my opinion, that would be a consensus. Some people might think a lower number would be a consensus as well. So once you have a consensus, the majority of people agree of what is a reasonable amount, come up with 3 different numbers: your wish, want, and walk. Now, when you come up with something, in this case, 3 different numbers, it means that you determine those 3 numbers. You establish them. They're firm in your mind. But notice this is a 2-preposition expression, to come up with something. Come up with 3 different numbers: your wish, want, and walk. Wish, so this is now explaining what this number is. So wish is a high specific number you open with. So notice here they said a specific number. So that is not a range. Remember, a range was between 50 to 60, but they say a high specific number. So if this is your range, a specific number on the high end would be $58,500 per year. That's very specific, and it's on the high end of that range. Wish is a high specific number you open with. Want is the actual target that is a little lower. So the target means this is what you actually want. So although you said 58.5, you actually would be happy with 56. Because again, this is culturally specific, but negotiations in North America for salary, they go back and forth. So I say a number, but then my employer is going to say something a little bit lower. So I need to start high because I know my employer is not going to accept that number. They're going to say something lower. So my actual target, my want, should be lower than my first number. And walk is the point in which the deal is no longer good for you. You have to set that in advance. Now, it's called a walk because the expression is to walk away from a deal. When you walk away from a deal, it means you reject that deal, you end that deal. Let's review this sentence. The interview went well, but they only offered me $52,000, so I walked away, which means I said, no, this negotiation, this conversation is over. I reject your offer. Now, notice I put away in brackets because native speakers will commonly drop it and simply say, I walked. Now, another example, they offered me $52,000. Should I accept it? And then maybe your friend, your husband, a former colleague might say, no way, you should walk away. Again, a native speaker will probably drop it, which means you should end the negotiation. You should not accept that deal. So walk is the point in which the deal is no longer good for you. You have to set that in advance. So again, that was you have to come up with, determine, establish. We can add here set. So you have to come up with that. You have to set that in advance. In advance means before the meeting. If an annual bonus is part of your compensation package, so your compensation package includes everything that you get, your salary, your bonus, your benefits, your vacation time, your sick time, your parking spot, your free lunch, all of those items are your compensation package. So it's everything that you receive by working for a company. If an annual bonus is part of your compensation package, make sure to look at the percentage and whether it's prorated based on the time you joined the company. Prorated means it's calculated according to specific time allocations. So in a year, there are 12 months. So let's say your bonus is $12,000 per year, but it's prorated. You will get $1,000 for every month that you work in the year. So if you join the company in February, you only missed 1 month, which means you'll get $11,000 for your bonus. But if you join in January, you missed half the year. So you'll only get $6,000 for your bonus that year. So this article is saying that could be an area of negotiation. And if a bonus isn't included in the offer, you can try to negotiate one. So maybe you try to negotiate the salary and they say it's non-negotiable. So you might try to negotiate a bonus, which is considered a benefit. And that would be part of your total compensation package. So remember, your compensation package is the total of everything you receive, including your salary, benefits, perks, and anything else. That's the end of our article. So now you're ready to negotiate if you get a job offer in North America, because maybe it's not considered acceptable to negotiate in your country. Again, let me know in the comments. I'm really interested to hear how negotiation works around the world. So now what I'll do is I'll read the article from start to finish, and this time you can focus on my pronunciation. So let's do that now. Got a job offer? Now it's time to negotiate. Millions of people are quitting their jobs and finding new ones in what has been dubbed the Great Resignation. If you're looking for a job, you've got the advantage. And if you've received a job offer, it's now time to negotiate. While salary tends to be the major negotiation point, it's not the end of the conversation. There are other benefits and perks that can be flexible as well. First, stay mum on pay until the time is right. Recruiters often ask for a salary figure early in the hiring process, but try to avoid giving a number. The right time to bring pay up is at the end of the process, after you've received an offer. You never start to negotiate in the midst of an interview, said Victoria Medvec, author of Negotiate Without Fear. You're not negotiating before they've said, "We want to hire you." The key is having a well-researched salary number. Websites like Glassdoor, PayScale, and LinkedIn can help provide a sense of what people in similar roles, experience levels, and markets are making. Once you have a consensus of what is a reasonable amount, come up with 3 different numbers: your wish, want, and walk. Wish is a high specific number you open with. Want is the actual target that is a little lower, and walk is the point in which the deal is no longer good for you. You have to set that in advance. If an annual bonus is part of your compensation package, make sure to look at the percentage and whether it's prorated based on the time you joined the company. And if a bonus isn't included in the offer, you can try to negotiate one.
Do you want to keep learning English with the news? If you do, put yes, 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 put yes, yes, yes in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.